Good morning, everyone. My name is Josh Mira, and this is going to be our second presentation of the day during our first day of Pathways. This will be Animal Advocates, PAWS for Healing Trauma, with Cheri and Sydney. They will introduce themselves in a very short moment. Please be aware that if you have any questions or concerns about the presentation, you can place your questions in the Q&A section on the left-hand side. There'll be a halfway point where we will do Q&A for Cheri's presentation, and then at the end, we'll do a Q&A for Sydney's portion of the presentation. Without further ado, please feel free to sit back and enjoy Animal Advocates, PAWS for Healing Trauma.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to our presentation, and I'm going to go ahead and start screen sharing my PowerPoint presentation, and we'll go from there. All right, Animal Advocates, PAWS for Healing Trauma. My name's Cheri Herschel. I work for Crisis Center North. I've been aware of Crisis Center North and involved since 2010. And I have been working for Crisis Center North since 2016. I'm also a certified veterinary technician, and my position at Crisis Center North is as a canine intervention specialist and a legal advocate. The second half of our presentation will be presented by Sydney Stevenson. She's Crisis Center North's youth counselor, and she also coordinates our PAWS, which is our group for children that involves our animal advocates. Who is Crisis Center North and the PAWS for Empowerment program? So I just put up a few pictures of who we are. These are our three canine advocates on the left, following clockwise. That is our executive director, Grace Coleman, in the front, and then myself, Dana, who is also a legal advocate, and Sydney in the back with all of our animal advocates. And then, of course, there's Thea and her lovely rainbow tutu. On the right top is two of our children from our PAWS program who are reading a book to Penny.
I think we can only see the PowerPoint right now.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, Cheri, I apologize, but we're only seeing the first portion of it. We're not seeing the actual PowerPoint.
Oh, really? See, it's full screen on my screen.
We're only seeing the actual PowerPoint
now
page itself.
Let me try this again. Okay. Now, are we seeing the first page? Full screen?
Yep.
Okay.
We're not seeing it in full screen. We're only seeing it like in PowerPoint mode.
Really? It's full. I'm going full screen here. Let me try stop sharing, and then I'll try sharing again. And let me see what I'll actually, maybe I'll try the entire screen. Oh, I don't have that option. Okay. Share. And from the beginning. So you guys aren't seeing it full screen?
No, but you can still see the details pretty well.
Okay. I'm not sure why, because it's full screen on my screen. So, the only thing I can do is I can try, let me make this full size. Is that even a little bit better? Now that I made my full screen?
You're good there. As long as you just go through the slides from that point, you should be fine. Because we're on the first slide right now.
Okay. Are we on the photos now?
We are not. We're still on the first slide.
So it's not advancing at all. Let me try this. Technology. Now are we on the photos?
Yes, we're on the photos now.
Okay. All right, I'll just stay in this mode. It seems like when I hit slideshow is when things mess up, so I'm just going to leave it in this view for myself as well.
That'll be fine.
Okay, so we have our canine advocates. Clockwise, we have our at least part of our PAWS for Empowerment group, including our executive director, Grace Coleman. We have Thea. We have two of our PAWS pals reading to Penny. Our slide about our PAWS Up Against Domestic Violence stipend program. And then a very adorable picture of Sydney and Thea. Penny, who is our matriarch of the PAWS program in our downtown court. And then that is myself and Rune on the lower left-hand corner. So next slide. So a little bit about myself as the slide advances. I am a certified veterinary technician. Again, my position at Crisis Center North is Canine Intervention Specialist and Legal Advocate. I am a founding member of the PAWS program and joined the committee that implemented it in 2010. And the way that that happened was I was actually contacted by Grace Coleman, our executive director, to help her train Penny as the center's first canine advocate. Since 2010, I have trained all of the canine advocates at Crisis Center North and their handlers, as well as educating staff and public on the PAWS for Empowerment program and our animal advocates. I routinely present to veterinary offices throughout the Pittsburgh region. That's the canine intervention specialist part of my job. My goal is to educate veterinary professionals to become community allies in the fight against domestic violence, much like medical professionals. If you're not aware, there is a National Link Coalition, which describes the connection between animal abuse and neglect and domestic violence. I would strongly suggest looking up that organization if you haven't in the past. So myself and my Labrador Rune attend magisterial court twice a week to assist victims of domestic violence in navigating the criminal justice system. And we provide support and guidance, obviously, during what is a very traumatic time in that person's life. And our next slide, as it advances, is there we go. What is PAWS for Empowerment? So the concept began in 2010 when Penny, our shelter rescue spaniel mix, met a boy who was reluctant to go into counseling. When Penny went into counseling with him, the therapist was in shock about how much the boy was willing to share simply because Penny was there and by talking to Penny. Our PAWS program since then has expanded to include our legal accompaniment, where working dogs accompany victims of domestic violence into magisterial court. Ari goes to counseling. He is teamed up with our counseling department, and they assist domestic violence victims in overcoming their past and moving on to whole, fulfilling lives. Ari accompanies both in-person and online counseling sessions. Thea is our animal-assisted therapy cat. She works with Sydney, who will be doing the second half of our presentation. So you'll hear a lot about Thea and Sydney's great knowledge about animal-assisted therapy. And then thanks to the support of many individuals, businesses, and organizations, Crisis Center North is also able to offer pet care stipends to victims of domestic violence to assist with pet care, boarding, and even basic needs like food and litter boxes and things of that nature. So that is essentially what our PAWS for Empowerment program does for victims of domestic violence. How are our animal advocates trained and evaluated? Well, in a nutshell, any animal that goes into therapy must have a quiet, calm, and comfortable temperament. They have to be okay around all kinds of different people, including children. Sometimes our adult victims, unfortunately, don't have a babysitter. We know how common that is. So they do need to bring their children to counseling as well with them. A trusting, loving nature is imperative, and a close relationship with a therapist. We really foster our working animals having a very strong relationship with their handlers. As for training for the therapy, obviously all of our dogs have basic obedience training, but otherwise we allow them to work intuitively with our clients. We encourage them to interact independent of guidance. We don't tell them where to sit or who to be with, but we allow them to work with the clients as they see fit. And very often our animals give us a lot of information about how this person is feeling and how we can best work with them by how our animals interact with them. As far as any of our animals that have public access, which is all of them, they are required to accompany us in public settings, courthouses, mobile therapy offices, and public and community education events. So our dogs are all trained to highest standard of the public access test that is used for evaluating service dogs. None of our dogs are allowed to go out in public or into the court settings without passing the public access test. Thea was tested in a cat appropriate way, and Sydney has been very proactive in advancing her training. I feel like every time I see Thea, she's learned something new. And also her breed really helps that. They're extremely curious. Sphynx are extremely curious and confident. So they really do make an ideal therapy animal. Also, their hairlessness is great. It makes her very easy to clean. And it also makes her fairly safe for people who may be allergic. So I just want to play a short video about that was aired on Court TV in 2020 about how the Paws for Empowerment program began at Crisis Center North.
Welcome back. I know it's been a tough, grueling week. I mean, for most of us. For me personally, it has been as well, with the stories that we're covering and just the situation we're in. So let's take a moment here. Exhale. And now a reason to smile. Julie Grant introduces us to the Canine Court Advocate.
Her name is Penny, but you can also call her a pioneer. She's the first shelter dog in Pennsylvania to become a canine court advocate.
Often shelter dogs remain homeless or aren't given the same kind of opportunities as other dogs are. And she's a testament to what can happen if you allow a shelter dog to tell their own story.
Penny's also the first canine in the state to serve in that role in the domestic violence movement.
Unlike other types of crimes, victims of domestic violence generally have been perpetrated against many times prior to finding themselves into a courtroom setting.
Grace Coleman is the executive director of Crisis Center North, a nonprofit that offers counseling and other resources for victims of domestic violence. Penny's journey of helping begins with Grace rescuing her and bringing her to work one day. It wasn't planned, but Penny helped a young child get through counseling.
People respond to animal-assisted therapy, and they respond to the power of a canine.
It was clear Penny wanted to help, and with formal training, said helping could be her job.
Penny gets up every morning and generally brings me her leash because she's that excited about going to work every day. And when she gets in, she has a special purple vest that she wears into court so that people know that she is a dog with a purpose when she steps into the courtroom.
Grace's dad was a veterinarian who always said a good dog is a dog with a job.
We felt that most behavioral problems with dogs resulted from dogs that did not have a job. And I think he's right, because definitely Penny takes a sense of pride in doing her work each day. It just goes to show that dogs want to make a contribution as well.
Judge Anthony Savakis was one of the first magisterial district justices to allow Penny to work in his courtroom.
Penny has an uncanny ability, it's amazing, to know in that crowd and in that rush, if a victim is in fear or intimidated by a certain party, by that defendant anywhere in that building, Penny knows who that defendant is.
Penny also enhances the help the human advocate can give to the victim.
It allows the advocate to do a more effective job when the victim is more at ease and more comfortable in their interaction.
Much of the time, Penny makes decisions without any prompting.
Penny will take a protective stance, and I've seen it before. Penny will take a protective stance on behalf of her client.
When police officers come into the courtroom, she has nudged advocates to let them know that a gun is present in the courtroom.
Penny's trained in the intuitive method, which allows her to follow her instincts and signal accordingly.
So, for example, Penny will stay with an individual and be in front of them when they have anxiety. But when a person is depressed in counseling, she often cues the counselor by touching them, by leaning up against them, or laying on their feet in particular. And as soon as the counselors see that, they automatically know that they should do a depression inventory.
In nearly 10 years of service, Penny has never been wrong.
I'm vindicated in the fact that Penny's abilities have certainly ratified that decision that we did make at the court to have Penny's services provided.
Ari, Penny's dog brother at home, just completed 2 years of training to do the same job as his sister in the PAWS for Empowerment program.
These dogs and their powerful noses, their sense of smell, really help advocates come to conclusions far more quickly than our human noses would ever take us, or our human abilities would take us. So they make powerful partners both in and outside of the courtroom.
Ari will have big paws to fill when Penny retires. In the meantime, Penny is up for a Hero Dog Award.
Our shared goal is to curb domestic violence, and Penny has done her part. And since Penny has done that part, that is certainly something heroic.
Penny may not wear a cape, but she's a superhero to many people when she puts on her purple vest.
All right, so again, that was a video that aired on Court TV. It was filmed in 2019 and aired, I believe, in early 2020. So that just kind of gives you an idea about how our program started and what our goal was when we started the PAWS for Empowerment program. So here's a little bit about how our canine advocates navigate the magisterial court system. The magistrate court is the first stop for domestic violence victims in the state of Pennsylvania. Preliminary hearings take place in the jurisdiction in which the crime occurred. I'm sure most of us are aware of that. Two of Crisis Center North's canine advocates accompany our legal advocates to magistrate court. Ari attends court with Dana, and those two are pictured there on the left. And Rune goes to court with me. We're down there in the lower right. A day of court typically involves us and our canines meeting with the assistant district attorney to review the cases. And then we meet with the victims one-on-one in a safe location away from the perpetrator, who typically is waiting in the same area unless they are jailed. Our canine advocates' main purpose is to bring a sense of comfort and security to the client. And they also interact daily with the court staff, assistant district attorneys, lawyers, judges, and police officers. So they really are involved in the entire court system. Rune is Crisis Center North's newest canine court advocate. She is actually my dog. She was born and raised here in my home. And I actually began training her at just 3 days old with the early neurological stimulation process, which is something that helps puppies from a very young age become accustomed to different sights and sounds and textures. Rune was able to start attending court at 14 weeks old. Of course, she was not public access tested at that point, but we were taking her to court and allowing her to informally interact with victims at that time. Her first day at court, she did accompany a young female victim to the witness stand. And that victim was initially petting her, but when the victim was no longer able to pet her, Rune actually positioned herself under the chair and across the victim's feet. And since that day, Rune has assisted over 50 clients in magisterial court in Allegheny County. Court staff, judges, and lawyers always enjoy having her in court. And one public defender said recently, she brings a sense of calmness and normalcy to an otherwise very uncomfortable and cold place, which I think is a great description of what our dogs do. Here's just some pictures of Rune, her first day at court there on the left, all the way to the far right, a very recent picture. You may recognize that location in the video. Penny was seated in that same chair of the Allegheny County District Attorney office. So Rune had fun that day visiting the district attorney. I'll just go over this briefly. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court recently ruled that comfort dogs are allowable in criminal court cases. It does not require the proof of the need of a comfort dog. And Pennsylvania will be adopting what's called the balancing test, and this was put in place by the Connecticut Supreme Court several years ago in regards to dogs accompanying witnesses. So at this time, at least in criminal cases, comfort dogs are allowed for witnesses on the stand. Basics of working with dogs in the canine court system. There is no legislation or ruling which governs the use of comfort dogs in any setting other than criminal court, and that obviously that ruling was fairly recent. Introducing the canine to the court staff when obtaining permission and prior to attending the court, as well as assessing the court for its suitability for a working dog. Some courts just aren't suitable to have a dog working. We do occasionally run into some court staff who may have an objection to the dog being present. So of course we need to honor that and not have our dogs present in that court. And typically after 2 to 3 visits to the court informally, I have found that the dogs are usually ready to work. Crisis Center North currently has permission from 5 magisterial judges to attend their court with our working canine advocates. So it's important that clients consent to having dogs present. Our job is all about making sure our clients know what's going on and that they are able to consent to what's going on, because often in their lives they haven't had that opportunity. So our dogs do need to be ready that if somebody does not want to interact with them, that we have an ability to either leave them with another court staff member or to put them on a downstay at a distance that the client is comfortable with. When the client consents, we allow them to interact in a way that's comfortable and is safe for everybody. So, no licking, no direct face contact, no sitting in a victim's lap, and no sitting on the floor with the dog. We do want to keep everybody safe, humans and dogs alike. Hand sanitizer has become part of all of our everyday lives. And even before the pandemic, clients were always offered hand sanitizer before and after. And, excuse me. One thing that we have found that has been extremely helpful and encouraging for our program is that we have clients fill out an anonymous evaluation about the services they received, and that includes the Canine Advocate. We have tracked that clients are much more comfortable in court with the dogs present. 86% of clients noted on their evaluation that they are more comfortable with the dog there. And 43% said that they were more likely to attend court if they knew a dog would be present. This slide here, I just put up some media links. I know that the recording of this session will be available. So in the future, if you ever wanted to access some of the media links from Crisis Center North and our PAWS for Empowerment program, I wanted to list a few of those there. And at this time, I know we're going to do my Q&A session, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of screen sharing mode and go on to the Q&A, and then we will move over to Sydney's presentation. Sydney is our youth counselor, and she owns Thea. All right, let's move over to the Q&A session. All right. I don't see any questions in there now. We did have an issue with the slideshow, obviously, but I think we got that resolved. So if nobody has any questions, as soon as we are able to flip Sydney over to be able to do her presentation, we can move on to that. If anybody comes up with any questions between now and then, you can just go ahead and put them in the Q&A session. I'll be sticking around and I can answer those at the end.
All right. It looks like you can see that pretty well, I think. I don't know if I'll have the same issue that you did, Cheri. Let me see what happens when I hit slideshow.
Sydney, it looks like yours is working. I just wanted to
Okay.
use this moment to also bring forth the poll as well for your presentation.
Oh, okay. Yep. Let me go ahead and, yeah, if you want to bring that up, I can talk about the poll before Sydney runs into hers. So our poll question is open. It's on the left-hand side. Please go ahead and vote. Voting is open. And our poll question is, if you had to pick one animal to work with professionally, which would you choose? A dog, a cat, a miniature horse, or something else? Miniature horses are actually quite common, especially in therapeutic settings. So although that may seem unusual, they actually are quite common, more so in the southern states than here up north. But miniature horses are actually also allowed as registrable service animals. So, yep, go ahead and take the poll. Let us know if you had to pick one animal to work with professionally, which would you choose?
And should I start my presentation while they're doing the poll? Is that because I'm looking at time? We only have about 15 minutes. Should I go ahead and get started?
Feel free to start at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Slideshow. I'm beginning. So I titled my portion of the presentation, Is It Magic? Incorporating AAT into a Domestic Violence Children's Therapy Program. And the magic part is important because we have a kind of a different program than what most people do when they think of animal-assisted therapy. So I'm going to talk about this a little bit more on another slide, but we are very well trained in the science of animal-assisted therapy, as well as body language of the animals and how to specifically gear this towards our clients. So if we say, oh, it's just magic, like, the animals do know what to do, but it's not really magic per se, because if you say that, then we're kind of discounting all the hard work that goes into training the animal, training the human advocate, and really planning things out in the best way for your clients. And so sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, there's just a magical connection. And animal-assisted play therapy, which is what I'm trained in, likes to really focus more on, like, it's not exactly magic. Actually, here's the science and here's why it works. So we're going to talk about why this can be so beneficial for your clients. So just some background about me and my training, as well as my therapy animal, Thea. She'll probably be in and out. I'm sure that some of you have seen her already. So I've been interested in animal-assisted therapy since about 2013, when I started working with my own rabbits and some hamsters in an elementary school that I was teaching at. But I did not have much training on that back then. And then as of 2019, I was fortunate enough to be able to take a very in-depth, in-person 4-day training on animal-assisted play therapy level 1, which involves reading 2 books and PowerPoints and taking tests, hands-on tests as well, practice with actual animals. So it's a really detailed program that emphasizes both the human handler skills as well as learning the body language of the partner animal that you'll be working with. And then earlier this year, I was able to take their level 2 training, which is where your animal that you're working with gets certified to work with the clients, and you learn more in-depth interventions. You get to plan things for your clients and really put all the skills that you learned in the earlier level to use. So Thea is 5 years old. She's a Sphinx, which is a hairless cat. They are very affectionate. They're at 4 degrees warmer than regular cats, and they're very food motivated. So all of that makes her the perfect therapy partner because she's very comforting. She can learn easily, treats any food. She'll do anything for treats, basically. And she really wants to be around people. Doesn't matter who it is. It could be a total stranger. If they walk in the room, she'll walk right up to them like she's known them her whole life. So you really want your animals to be enjoying the interaction as much as the clients are. Let's see. So the difference between animal-assisted activities and animal-assisted therapy. What we do at Crisis Center North is really geared more towards this therapy side of things. Animal-assisted activities or interventions are what you think of when you see like a hospital visitation dog or like a reading program dog, where it's more just passive. The animal is there providing comfort. Our animals are trained, our handlers are trained in depth, and we really try to take an active approach with our clients. And then animal-assisted play therapy, which I'm going to talk about in a short moment, is a branch of animal-assisted therapy. So animal-assisted play therapy was developed by Risa Van Fleet and Tracy Fa Thompson, and it is really pretty much the only program of its kind in the country, because it takes the principles of play therapy and the principles of animal-assisted therapy and melds them together in a best practice trauma-informed way. And so it's not something that you can just kind of pick up and do, but it's been really, really helpful with our clients. So I'm going to show you some case examples. Okay. And just a disclaimer also, I have taken level 1 and 2, but I'm not fully certified yet. So you need to get further supervision in order to be considered fully certified. So it's more than just taking your pet to work. A lot of people think, oh, I have a friendly dog or cat. They love people. Let me just bring them to work with me and that'll be great. But you really need to know what you're doing with this. So animal-assisted therapy, and particularly animal-assisted play therapy, is goal-oriented, which means when I'm making a treatment plan for a client, when I'm doing the intake with their parent, I'm going to think, okay, what things does this child need to work on? And how can Thea help with that? So we're not just kind of willy-nilly saying, let's throw an animal in a room together with this person and hope for the best. We really want to be thinking about it in how is this going to benefit the client, which is also great if you're like writing grants, if you're doing any sort of research, because being goal-oriented means that you're going to have measurable outcomes and standards. Body language is so important. This is the key to our whole program. When you're learning animal-assisted play therapy, you get tested on learning 2 different animals. So I'm trained in dogs and cats. I'm also working on the horse end of things, but you have to demonstrate knowledge on reading the body cues of the animal that you're working with and the species that you're going to be working with, because you need to know when your animal's feeling uncomfortable and be very proactive. It's our job to have what's called split attention. So if you're thinking about bringing an animal into your practice, into your agency, you're now in charge of 2 things. You're in charge of that client that you're working with and their safety, but you also have a responsibility to your animal partner to make sure that they're comfortable and safe, to make sure that your client isn't doing anything that's hurting them. And so it's a lot to manage, and you really need to get practice and supervision in how to safely do that. We also use non-coercive methods in the animal-assisted play therapy program. So with Thea in particular, she's clicker trained. She's off leash most of the time. Really, the only time I would ever have her on a leash if I was going to take her outside. We want the animals to be able to freely interact. And so in animal-assisted play therapy, our animals most of the time are not on harnesses, just because that can cut down on the playfulness and the authentic interaction. So there are times and places where you're going to need to have them harnessed and vested and leashed. But when we get into the actual therapy room, Thea pretty much has free roam, because we want her to be able to interact with the clients on her terms and as she would as a natural cat. So sometimes you'll see programs that kind of are training their animals, and Risa calls it taking the animal out of the animal. You can tell they don't like what they're doing. You can tell they're not having fun, but that's not the case for Thea. She really enjoys the work, and that's a lot because we let her be a cat. If she wants to sleep, she gets to sleep. We don't wake her up. That's really important for cats. And so you want to teach respect. You're modeling that for your clients, that your animal's needs are important. Let's see. Okay, so lessons that your animals can teach with your clients. We do something called a 3-second consent test. This is really important in any animal-assisted therapy context, but in particular, it really helps when working with victims and survivors, because a lot of them have had their consent taken away from them, especially when I'm working with kids. They don't have a lot of choice in things, and their perpetrators have maybe modeled for them that their opinions don't matter. And so what we do with our animals is we will pet them for about 3 seconds, and then we back off and we watch their body language to see, do they turn and look at us? Do they wag their tail? Do they make a vocalization? It's their way of showing us, yes, I like what you're doing, you can continue. The other really important pieces of animal-assisted play therapy that really help out with domestic violence clients is giving that animal a choice. So again, Thea's allowed to sleep if she wants to. She has spaces in the room where she can go to take a nap or to hide. And we don't, if she's going into one of her like tunnels or something, I don't let the clients, take her out of there. That's her way of saying, I need a break, and we respect that. And if we model that for our clients, it teaches them that Thea deserves that, but that they also deserve that too, that it's okay to have your boundaries. As I mentioned earlier, the animal really needs to enjoy the work because this is playful. So the difference between animal-assisted therapy and animal-assisted play therapy is sometimes it's okay to have a little bit of rambunctiousness, like Thea will get the zoomies, and clients love that when she runs around the room. We don't want to necessarily discourage that in a play therapy setting because it can make your clients be more playful. It can really open them up. And so most of the time you're going to see calm animals kind of just laying and sitting, but specifically from what I do with the play therapy aspect of it, we look for animals that have a little bit more zest and like a little bit more energy, but still are able to be trained and follow safety rules. And then the animal should have 2 routes of escape at all times. So we don't allow full armed hugs. We can do one-armed hugs. We have to make sure that they have space and ways to like back away if they need to, so we don't corner them. And this can come in handy when I'm teaching clients about this. That also kind of can segue into safety planning with them, because with adults, it's relatively easy to make a safety plan, but if you're working with children, it's sometimes like an abstract concept. It can be really scary. And so we talk about, look, this is Thea's safety plan. Here's her places that she goes if she's feeling uncomfortable. What about you? What can you do if you're not feeling safe? It shows how to interact with someone in a safe and loving way, because again, a lot of the people that we're working with have had their power and control taken away from them. They've had it used against them. And so we want to model for our clients that, no, you're not going to, pull the cat's tail. You're not going to pick them up and just take them where you want them to go. We want to get her to want to go with us. So how do we do that, right? We do that by showing affection, by being calm and controlled and nice and not, raising our voices and not hurting. How to calm down and self-regulation. So this is a key thing, especially with cats, because they're so great at sleeping. And I'm going to show you guys a video in a little bit of an example of this. But I work with Thea very often to model for clients. This is how we do, taking deep breaths. This is how we close our eyes and just relax ourselves. And it can also help for some in-the-moment self-regulation. If clients are escalated, if they're really upset, if we're having to talk about something that's scary or they got triggered or had a flashback, animals can help bring that down, bring them down a level and bring them back into the moment and keep them grounded. Resiliency is also something that animals are really great at showing our clients. So particularly if you get an animal like Thea or Ari, where they came from maybe a not the best background, and you can see that they've overcome that, clients can really relate to that. So you can talk with your clients about, Thea, she wasn't being taken care of when I got her. Like, she had some medical issues and her previous owners didn't take the best care of her. I wonder if you can relate to that. And it'll like really open up the conversation, and clients feel safe to talk about what's happened to them when they see that Thea has been through similar experiences. And then the last thing that it teaches is frustration tolerance. So this is an important one when we have an animal that we're working with and we want to have that consent and that authentic interaction. That means sometimes the animal's not going to do the trick we want them to do. Like, I might say, all right, go through this tunnel, and Thea has other ideas. Or I might, have a client that really was looking forward to a session with Thea, but Thea's taking a nap. And so they're going to be disappointed in the moment, but this is a really great opportunity to work through that with your client. It helps teach them to, manage those feelings in a safe way. What do we do when we're frustrated? What do we do when we're disappointed? And then it also comes in handy when I'm working with parents, because I do work with some parent-child sessions, or sometimes parents one-on-one, to teach like healthy, positive parenting skills. And so sometimes like punishment and unsafe discipline has been used. And so if they see that Thea is not responding to me, we can use that as a teachable moment of like, oh man, this is really frustrating for me. This is really hard, but I wonder how we could get her to want to participate. I wonder what we could do to get her to listen or to follow directions. And it's just like kind of a lighthearted way to model that for clients and their parents, and open up the discussion in a non-threatening way. Because if you ask someone, okay, have you ever lost it on your kid? Nobody's going to want to talk about that. But if we say, well, man, it's so frustrating when my animal doesn't do what I want, I wonder if you can relate to that, then you're going to get a lot more responses than you would if you just took a typical parenting 101 approach. So specific ways that Thea helps. She has helped clients to overcome anxiety and fears. On our case page, I'm going to talk a little bit about a client who had severe anxiety and was able to work through that with Thea. She helps build rapport and help me to bond with clients faster, especially if they have attachment issues. So you'll hear very often in animal-assisted therapy, oh, if the animal trusts you, then you must be a safe person for me to talk to. People say that animals are a great judge of character. And so you can bond with them better if the client sees that they also trust you. There's health benefits of having a cat specifically. So purring, doing the kneading is great for blood pressure, heart rate. And then underneath where it says playful, these are just some things that I do with clients that they really like to play with her and helps open them up, helps Thea to interact with them spontaneously. She has a mouse. She can play the Get It game. She dresses up in different outfits that they've picked out, and they also build obstacle courses for her. All right, so just a quick demo here. So that was a video that I took with a client that was having trouble relaxing, and I noticed Thea looked really calm. And so I turned on the YouTube video and I'm like, let's do this together. And the client really responded to that much better than if I had just said, all right, now today we're going to do some deep breathing or some mindfulness. So these are some things that clients have told us and situations that stand out as like, this was really helpful. I could not have gotten the same response if I hadn't been working with Thea. So I had an 8-year-old girl who had severe anxiety. She was having panic attacks, really low self-esteem, low confidence. She couldn't even be in the room with Thea at first. She started crying. She couldn't even like look at her. Even when Thea was in her crate, she wouldn't come in the room. And so we very slowly worked to desensitize her to that, small steps at a time. Having her draw a picture of Thea and then having her be in the room, but Thea's still in her crate, and then, moving it a little bit closer, and then me holding Thea. And eventually she was able to actually pet her and really enjoyed being in the room with her and interacting with her. And she was so proud of that. She wanted to show her mom. And that focuses on that empowerment, which we know that empowerment is one of the #1 ways that you can help a survivor of trauma to overcome what has happened to them, is to give them back their power. I had a 10-year-old boy. He was just completely shut down, kind of crossed arms, looking away, frowning, 1 or 2 word answers at most, really wasn't opening up or wanting to have any conversations. And then Thea spontaneously just went up to him, climbed onto his lap, did the little circle thing, and fell asleep and she was purring. And it was like almost an instant connection. He just started talking. He was like, oh my gosh, he was petting her while he talked. And that really helped to regulate him and open him up. And then there was a girl that I was working with who had an abusive father and had not seen him in a while. And then the court decided that she was going to have visits with him. And so mom and I sat down to tell her, to break the news to her. And she was just so inconsolable, like screaming, crying. Nothing was working to calm this poor girl down. And then I asked, do you want to see Thea? Would it help for Thea to spend some time with you? And she couldn't even say yes, but she shook her head yes. And that was the only thing that worked to calm her down. So animals really do have a wonderful effect on people and can really help where trauma is concerned. But you also want to make sure that if you're working with animals, that you are appropriately trained. Again, it's not magic. You have to know what you're doing. There's safety principles involved. There's therapy principles and treatment planning. And so you want to be very, very mindful about incorporating this into your program if this is something that you're thinking about doing. All right. I will stop my screen share. Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Hi, Sydney. This is Cheri. I did see a question that came in after you started your presentation that was for me.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer that real quick. Allison asked, who owns the dogs? Where do they live? And does the program pay for the training? All of the dogs at the center, all of the animals at the center, Thea included, are owned by individuals. So Penny and Ari are owned by our executive director, Grace Coleman. I own Rune. Rune is my dog. She lives with me. And Sydney owns Thea. Thea lives with Sydney and goes back and forth to work with her on the days that she comes into the office. So all the animals live in home with employees of the center, and they're owned by us. So they are our own personal animals. They are not the center's animals. There is no ownership that is implied on the center of our animals. Does the program pay for training? Yes, part of our granting, part of the funding requests that we put out every year does involve training, paying for the training of our animals. That does include hiring outside consultants and things of that nature. Obviously, we don't want to have any conflict of interest with employees versus consultants that are outside of the center. So we do bring in outside consultants, and the program does pay for that training in the way that we do have to apply for grants and funding in order to, fund the training and testing that the animals have to go through. So I hope that answered your question, Allison. And if there's any other questions, let us know.
All right, we'll take a few seconds here for some questions to come in if there are any. At this point in time, I'd like to thank our presenters today for helping us with this presentation. It was very helpful. Thank you, Sydney. Thank you, Cheri.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Oh, we're happy to be here and glad to share our knowledge and information about what we're doing here in Pittsburgh.
Perfect. So I'll just give it 30 more seconds, and if we don't see any questions, we'll end the presentation, and then I think this is actually the last one for the day of the conference, so we'll see everyone hopefully tomorrow as well then for some more fun presentations thanks to Pathways.
And will we have access to recordings of the trainings afterwards?
Yes, there will be. These have been recorded, so you'll have access to all of these once the conference has been completed.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. I'm seeing all your thanks coming through on the chat. So
thanks.
We're glad to share the information.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.